Within 2 weeks or so, it's supposed to start getting cooler. So whenever it goes from being real hot to being real cold, that's usually when it starts to rain. From my understanding, I watch the Weather Channel and stuff like that, and just from what I have seen as well, but mostly from the stuff that I watched on the Weather Channel, is like if it's ever real hot outside, like it's 100 degrees outside and it drops to 80 degrees, when it drops to 80 degrees, that's when it starts raining. And so I think that I would anticipate that it's going to start getting cool here in about 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks to a month. And so when it starts getting cool, it's going to start raining. I haven't really gotten any significant amount of rain in about 2 months. And so I'm getting ready. I'm plowing the field up, and I'm going to show y'all what's going on. So this is the plowing implement that I use. It's called a disc plow. And I actually need to get drop the disc plow so it's not sitting on the wheels. But this is the implement that I use to plow my field. I really like it. It does decently on everything. If I had so one of a few pieces of equipment that I'm going to buy here pretty soon, whenever it looks like I need to buy equipment. I've already talked about my investment funnel. Right now I'm in the process of buying more land, and if I'm going to buy more land, that takes priority over equipment. And so equipment is only something that I buy after I've bought land, and I only buy land after I've bought cattle. And so if I don't think that I can buy any more cattle, I'm going to buy more land. If I have all of the cattle and all of the land and I still have money left over and I need to do something with it, then I'll buy equipment. After I've done all three, if I just still have money left over, then I'll go and do whatever I want with the money, right? That's the investment funnel idea. And so right now on my list of equipment to buy other than a truck is I'm going to buy a big old sprayer. I'm going to buy a big herbicide sprayer, and then I'm also going to buy a bush hog. Once I have like a batwing bush hog, a batwing shredder, and then I have a large sprayer, and I have this plow, I'm essentially good to go. I can do anything that I need to do. The big problem with the reason I'm looking to buy a sprayer, and the reason I'm looking to buy a bush hog, a shredder, is that I think that this will be good information. But the reason that I need a shredder is because, I'll take it's called a bush hog, but some people call it a shredder, some people call it a mower. They're all the same thing, at least where I'm at. And so if you take a look at this field, so this is what the field looks like after it's been plowed. You can tell everything's dead, right? Everything's dead. I pulled the plow, ripped everything out the ground. But if I did not plow the soil, it would look like this. You see all this little brush everywhere? You see how this one little brush plant has like thousands of seeds, right? And I mean, it's all over the place, right? I mean, there's brush all over the place. And that's what it would have looked like if I did not plow the field. And so as soon as it starts raining, the seed would come off that brush plant and it would just cover the field again. And so I'm plowing it all up to get rid of the brush. But the big thing is that if you have a field, I'll just tell you, if you have a field and it looks like this, if you got a bunch of brush like this, you just got a bunch of brush everywhere. If you plow it, you're going to have to run your plow over the field like 10 times. And so on a small little piece of 2 acre front yard like I have, it's not that big of a deal. I can run my plow over this field 7, 8, 9, 10 times, and it'll only take me 2-3 hours. And so it's not that big of a deal. But if you have like 100 acres, if you have 1,000 acres, you're not going to be able to plow it 7, 8, 9, 10 times. Not reasonably. I mean, it would take so long and it would take so much effort. It would not be worth the time investment. And so if you have a bunch of brush, you need to mow it first. You need to shred it first with a batwing mower or a brush hog. You need to brush hog it. You need to bush hog it. and then you need to spray it, and then you need to plow it. So that's what I would do. If you have some other better way of doing it, then do it your way. There are, but that's like the conventional way of doing things. That's not just me saying it. That's how almost everybody does it in terms of conventional farming. Like if you look at a farmer who's just doing just a regular, they're just a regular farming, just conventional farming, that's probably how they're going to do it. Either they're going to herbicide, they're going to herbicide, they're going to mow it, they're going to herbicide it. But a lot of people, like if you're starting on a soil that looks like this, right? A lot of crop farmers, their soil looks like this already. They've already plowed it. And actually, I'll actually want to talk about this today too. But, they essentially start on a bare patch of soil, and then they'll herbicide it whenever the brush is about that big. Whenever the weeds are about that big, they'll just herbicide the whole field. And, that works too. But once the brush has grown to several feet tall, like this, if the brush, like this is probably about 1.5 feet tall, right? That's probably, from, about 1.5 feet tall. This is the top of the plant. It just got ripped. So, it's probably about 1.5 feet tall. But once it gets once it gets that big, if you herbicide it, it's not going to work. And so you're going to have to shred it. You're going to have to bush hog it. And then you're going to have to get it real, just very, 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 cut most of it away. And then you can herbicide it, and then it'll get rid of it. And then you can plow the soil. And when you plow the soil, if you don't have any plant material on the soil, you can plow the soil real easy. You can plow the soil real easy. But if you have a bunch of brush on a field, if you have a bunch of roots, if you have a bunch of sod, if you have a bunch of grass, those roots are going to hold the soil together real hard. And so for you to run a plow through that field, you're going to have to run your plow through that field 7, 8, 9, 10 times. And it's just going to take too long. On a 2-acre field like this is my front yard, and it's maybe 2 acres. I can plow the whole front yard. I can plow 2 acres in about 3 hours, right? I can plow about 2 acres properly in about 3 hours. If I plow my field from morning to night, I can probably plow my field in about 2 days. If I start plowing the field at 7 in the morning, and I plow until midnight, I can probably plow my entire field in about 2 days. I mean, it would just take me about 30 hours, and I could probably do that in about 2 days. And but if you have 1,000 acres, I mean, if you have even 100 acres, it's probably not going to happen. I mean, it won't happen. It'd just be a waste of time. I mean, you would have to spend 2 weeks plowing your field from morning to evening, and then it's like, congratulations, you plowed 100 acres. And so you don't want to do, or you can use a better plow, right? You can use a moldboard plow. That would do it. That would get it done in one pass. You could just moldboard it, and then you could run a disc over the clods, and it would break the clods up. And then you can wait until it rains, and it will recompact your soil, and then you can plant on top of that. But I wanted to talk about this. This is something that I talk about very, very frequently. But when it comes to assessing the quality of your soil, so if you this is how I do it, and I'll tell you why it is that I do it, and I talk about this all the time, right? But so the big idea is that when you walk over a field and you grab a handful of soil, you should have big pieces, small pieces, you should have all sorts of different size pieces, right? I mean, like me, when I grab a handful of soil, you see I got like a big piece right here. I got a big piece right here. I got some smaller pieces right here. And then I got some real fine pieces, right? Like I got real fine pieces right there. And so the big idea with your soil is, like, if you're watching a crop farmer, if you ever walk onto somebody's field and you take a look at their field, the way you can tell that they have good soil, that they actually take care of their soil, is that they have soil that looks like this. The soil should be many, many, many pieces. You should have big pieces, small pieces, smaller pieces, and all that. If you okay, so the big idea is that if I have a soil like this and I plow it real hard, I plow it just constantly, I'm just constantly plowing the field, what's going to happen is that all of these big pieces are going to be pulverized. They're going to be pulverized, and eventually what you're going to be left with is, let me see if I can just get a handful of real fine dust. It'll turn your soil into dust like this. Imagine the whole field look like this. So that's what's going to happen. If you plow your, if you ever walk onto a person's field, or if you're watching somebody's video, and let's say that they're crop farming, and you take a look at their field, and their field is essentially just dust. It's just dust like this. It's just flat out turned into dust. That means that they're working their field too hard. And that's not good. You don't want your soil turning into dust. You don't want to kill the topsoil. If you kill the topsoil and the topsoil turns to dust, that's not good. You should probably let up on the plow and reconsider what you're doing. But the big idea, the reason that this happens is because you see this soil. There is a lot of bacteria and a lot of fungi in the soil. And that bacteria, as it eats the soil and as it lives in the soil, I'm pretty sure it's bacteria. I don't know if fungi, but there is a lot of fungi in the soil too. But they release byproducts. And one of the byproducts is called glomalin. And glomalin is a sticky substance. And so as the bacteria thrives in the soil, it will actually start to hold the soil together. You don't want your soil, because imagine this, if your soil did not stick together, it would essentially just be dust everywhere. Like if the wind blew, it would just kick up a whole bunch of dust everywhere. Right? And so the reason you want your soil to stick together like this is because it means that there's a lot of good bacteria and fungi in your soil. And one of the byproducts that they produce is a substance called glomalin. And glomalin is very sticky, and so it holds the soil together. So how do you know that you have a lot of good bacteria and a lot of good fungi? And how do you know that your soil is healthy? How do you know that your soil is promoting good growth? And well, the soil looks healthy. And what does healthy soil look like, right? Healthy soil looks like this. If I grab a handful of it, I got big pieces, I got small pieces, I got smaller pieces, I got everything in between. And once you start overworking a soil, what's going to happen is that the soil is going to slowly start turning into dust. You'll start pulverizing all the big pieces. And if you pulverize all the big pieces, and it turns all of the big, and you turn all of your big pieces of soil into dust, then you essentially, at that point, now it's now your soil is just that's not good, right? That's signs of unhealthy soil. And so and this is also what I mean by if you plow up your field, you're not damaging the environment. Okay, you shouldn't be worried about damaging your environment. You're not damaging the environment. All right, I mean, if you plow your field way too hard, way too often, then yes, you are going to damage your environment. If you plow your field 15 times a year, yeah, you're going to damage your environment. But if you plow your field 2 or 3 times a year, you're not going to damage your environment. If anything, you're going to make your environment better, right? And I've already talked about this. But the idea of fertilizer, that there are positively charged fertilizers and negatively charged fertilizers. And oh yeah, I wanted to talk about this. So what am I going to do with this field? So I've decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 50 pounds of phosphorus and potassium on my field on a 1:1:1 ratio via a 17-17-7. And so I'm going to put a 17-17 with 7 parts sulfur on my field, and I'm going to put 300 pounds per acre. And that'll give me about 54 pounds of phosphorus and potassium per acre. And the reason that I'm going to do that is because I'm going to put that, I'm going to have to replow my field here pretty soon. Anything that I missed, I'm going to replow it. I don't see any brush coming back up just yet, but I'm going to replow it. And when I replow it, I'm going to plow it very lightly one more time over. And when I plow it, I want to put that positively charged fertilizer into the soil. And I want after I do that, I'm gonna plant my my winter wheat. And I think I'll be planting winter wheat here in about 2 weeks to a month. It's still too hot. It's still not enough moisture. And but right now it's starting to get close to the time. And here's the thing, I'm not suggesting anybody do anything, right? I'm not saying you should go out and put 1717 on your field too. I've already talked about this, but the big idea of a good idea is that there is no the big idea of a good idea is that there is no such thing as a universal good idea. It's not possible, right? A good idea for me is going to be different than a good idea for you. And so how do you find a good idea, right? You take a look at your situation for what it is and come up with something that makes sense. That's how you do it. Right? If you walk out onto your field right now and you have a phosphorus deficiency, right, but you don't have a potassium deficiency, then you should apply more phosphorus than potassium. You should not be applying phosphorus and potassium on a 1-1-1 ratio. Right? If you have a potassium deficiency but you don't have a phosphorus deficiency, then you should apply more potassium than phosphorus. You shouldn't be applying phosphorus and potassium on a 1-to-1 ratio. Right? If your soil pH is under 6.5, if your soil pH is under 7, you should also consider dolomite liming well, don't just go and throw dolomite lime on your field because you have a pH of 6.5. Go out onto your field and take a look to see if you have calcium and magnesium deficiencies. How do you know if you have a calcium or magnesium deficiency? Why should you consider looking at calcium and magnesium, right? If you have a soil pH of 6.5, why should you look at calcium and magnesium, right? You should look at calcium and magnesium because dolomite lime is like 80% calcium and magnesium. And I've already talked about this, but when it comes to soil pH, there are only 5 big molecules or 5 big the 5 big things that are going to increase the pH of your soil are calcium, magnesium, potassium, salt, and there's something else, but I forgot. There are 5 big molecules that are largely responsible for increasing the pH of your soil: calcium, magnesium, potassium, salt, and there's one more. I'm pretty sure there's one more. And I've already said, if you don't live like next to the ocean, if you're not living next to the ocean, you don't really even have to worry about salt, right? I mean, chances are you're going to have either a calcium, magnesium, or a potassium deficiency. And so dolomite lime is like 80%, 84% calcium and magnesium. And so if you have a soil pH of 6.5, you should just look up, what does a calcium deficiency look like? What does a magnesium deficiency look like? And then you just look at Google Images, and then you just take a look at what does a calcium deficiency look like, and then you just walk out onto your field and take a look to see if you can find a calcium deficiency. Right? And I've already said, how do you diagnose a plant, right? It's easier to diagnose a broadleaf plant than it is to diagnose a grass. If you have a grass plant, it's going to be substantially harder for you to diagnose that grass plant than it would be if you have like a melon plant, a sunflower plant, a sagebrush. Anything that is a broadleaf will tend to be easier to diagnose than a grass. And so, I've already gone through all of these things like 20,000 times. I'm going to go over them again right now because it's getting time for me to plant grass. And, within about 2 weeks, 4 weeks, I'll be planting grass. What are the conditions that I'm looking for? It needs to be between 75 and 85 degrees in the afternoon. I need to have some soil moisture. I need to have a decent amount of soil moisture. And I'm also looking for it to, and I also need to have 3 to 4 inches of rain a month. Realistically, 3 to 4 inches of rain a month is like the ideal situation. If I get a 5 or 6, I'd be very happy. But is that really going to happen on an average basis? No. 3 to 4 is just very average. So if I get 3 to 4 inches of rain a month, I can essentially grow any grass as long as it's between 75 and 85 degrees in the afternoon. The mineral concentrations in the soil need to be considered. I'm on a soil that's 7.4 pH. I know that over the last 2.5 years, from collecting information, I have a phosphorus and a sulfur deficiency on my field. But if I apply phosphorus and sulfur on my field, then I also end up with a potassium deficiency, and I also need nitrogen on my field. Almost every field needs nitrogen. I don't really talk about nitrogen because chances are it doesn't matter where you are, you're going to need some nitrogen. 99% of all fields on the planet need some additional nitrogen. And so that's what I'm doing right now. That's how you do it. That's essentially just how it's done. It's not difficult. It does take a lot of practice. It's not difficult. Once you learn how to do it, it's not hard. But it takes a lot of practice, okay? That's the thing. It's it just takes a lot of practice. I mean, because I can almost guarantee that a lot of people, when they first start, you're going to misdiagnose a lot of things. You're going to misdiagnose a lot of things. You're not going to know what you're looking at, and then it's going to take a long time. Like, you're going to have to sit there and read a lot of books, right? You're going to have to take a long time. It's going to take a long time for you to, develop an understanding. But once you develop the understanding, it's not difficult. But getting to the point where you develop the understanding is the hard part, right? I mean, how do you know that you're looking at a nitrogen deficiency and not a sulfur deficiency, right? Well, because sulfur is an immobile nutrient, right? I mean, I think a lot of people would confuse a sulfur deficiency with a nitrogen deficiency, and it's like, well, how do you differentiate between a sulfur deficiency and a nitrogen deficiency, right? Because sulfur is an immobile nutrient. How do you differentiate between a phosphorus and a potassium deficiency? Right, phosphorus, your plants will start turning. If you have a phosphorus deficiency, your plants will start turning bluish. They'll start turning almost bluish, like real dark, and then they'll start turning red. And if you have a potassium deficiency, your plants will just they'll start developing. I'm pretty sure it's like spots on their leaves, and they just won't grow real good. They won't be real. They won't be growing real good. Whichever nutrient deficiency you have, whatever nutrient deficiency you have in your plant, the overall outcome, the outcome for every single one of them, if you don't do it correctly, is that the plant will not grow. That's the overall, that's the big idea. That's why it's so important. Like, why is it so important that you learn how to utilize fertilizers properly, right? Because if you don't learn how to utilize them properly, your plants aren't going to grow. You're not going to be able to grow anything. And also, you can also end up damaging your environment if you don't know what you're doing, right? Like, if you don't know what you're doing, you could end up damaging your environment. You could over fertilize the field. You could accidentally get fertilizer into bodies of water. You could end up having a nitrate leaching. You could end up turning your soil into dust. You could end up doing a lot of things that will damage your field pretty severely, to the point where you may not be able to grow anything on it for like a decade. And so that's why you should take time to really consider what you're doing. Think about what you're doing, making sure it's correct. I've already told you, how do you find information? You go on Google Scholar and just look it up, right? That's how I did everything. I've already told you where I found all my information, right? I went on Google Scholar and I just looked it up. How much fertilizer should I put on winter rye? How much fertilizer should I put on winter wheat? What were the results when this much fertilizer was applied? How much rain how much irrigation water was utilized? What nitrate solution was utilized in the irrigation system? You can look up all of this stuff for free on the internet. It's not hard, and it's free, right? You just sit there and you read for about 2 hours a day, 1 hour a day, and then you go outside and you utilize what you read and what you learned as a part of your decision-making system. You do what you believe is the right thing to do. You act objectively, right? You have a plan for yourself. You do the plan. And if the plan does not work, you replan. You take a look at it. Why did it happen? This was why it happened. And so I'm going to change this. Maybe I need to increase the amount of nitrate I'm putting on my field. Maybe I need to wait until it's going to rain a little bit more. Maybe I need to use a plow to, push the fertilizer into the field, something. right? Come up with a plan. Think about it. Think about what you're doing. Don't just start swinging into the, don't just start, develop an idea. Like, have a plan for yourself, right? Have a plan. Oh, I'm going to do this and this and this, right? All right. I'm going to do this with this. I'm going to do that with that. And I'm going to do that with that one. Right, have a plan, and if something does not work out, think about why did it not work, and then think objectively. Look for more information. If something did not work, there's a reason it did not work, and you can probably find if you just go on the internet and look it up, you can find out why it didn't work. You can come up with a better plan, and then you can do it that way. And so, if you don't learn how to utilize fertilizer, you're not going to be able to grow anything. If you utilize fertilizer improperly, you could actually end up damaging your environment. Make sure you're thoroughly thinking about what you're doing. Think about what you're doing, making sure, is what I am doing, is it actually correct, right? Is it actually correct, right? And if it's not, then, rethink it through. Right, even if you think it's correct and you go out and it doesn't work, then it turns out it was incorrect, then sit there and rethink about it. Why did it not work? You're going to see me do this all the time, right? You see me do this all the time. I do something, I think, I come up with an idea. I look into the idea. I believe that it's a good idea, and I go and do it. And it turns out to not be a good idea, and I think about why it happened, right? Like a good example of when I did this very recently was with the animal vaccinations, right? I was using an injectable modified live vaccination, and but injectable vaccines, one of the symptoms or one of the side effects of an injectable vaccination is that it causes inflammation in the lungs of the animal, right? And I did not, and I thought I was utilizing the best vaccination when I was giving them a modified live, right? And calves, in particular, calves have maternal antibodies until they're about 5 months old. They get antibodies from their mother, and if you give them an injectable vaccination, it's going to cause inflammation in their lungs, and it's also going to cause, it's going to create toxic compounds with the maternal antibodies, right? And so I changed my vaccination. So what was the solution for the vaccination problem? Utilize an intranasal vaccination. If you utilize an intranasal vaccination, there is no interaction with the maternal antibodies. There is no inflammation in their lungs. Right? I mean, and so, you can solve all of your problems this way. Whatever problem you have, you can take a look at it, see what is going on. Can I improve this? And if I'm going to improve it, what am I going to do? And is the improvement actually an improvement? If yes, then move forward with the new plan. Right? And so I do this all the time. You're going to see me do this all the time. Maybe I had a plan and it turns out that the rain missed me, and now I got to come up with a different plan. And I can walk over a field and figure out what I need to do within 3 seconds. It doesn't matter where I go. This is the big benefit for me, is that it doesn't matter where I go. Anywhere that I go, I can just essentially walk over the field, and within 3 to 10 seconds, I can figure out exactly what I need to do. And I will be like 98% correct. And so, that's how you want to be. You want to get to a point where you can actually farm in real time. That's the end goal, right? I've always said that the big idea of farming is that when you become a very, very, very high level farmer, the big idea is that you can farm in real time. You can walk onto a field right now and go, you know what I'm going to do with this field? Next week, it's going to be 90 degrees, but the week after that, it's going to drop to 85. You got a bunch of brush on your field, and you got a tractor with a plow, and I'm going to plow the field. And when I plow the field, I'm going to put 50 pounds of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. I've taken a satellite image of your field, and the satellite image of your field is saying that you have a soil pH of 7.4. Right? You can do all of this in 10 seconds. I could do all of this in 10 seconds. It doesn't matter where I go. Right? I can farm anywhere that I go. You could drop me off on a field in the middle of Arkansas, and I will start farming balls to the wall. Right? You can put me on a field in the middle of Georgia, and I will start farming it balls to the wall. I can legitimately farm anywhere that I go. And I can come up with a plan within 30 seconds, and it will be like 98% correct. And so that's how you want to be. Eventually, you want to get to a point where you are capable of farming in real time. I could put you anywhere. You could go anywhere, and you could just start farming. That's the big idea. And once you can do that, you can essentially, farming is such a it's a skill set that is required by every individual on the entire planet. If someone cannot farm, they need to rely on somebody that can farm, right? Because if nobody's farming, there's no food. And so, if you learn how to farming is going to be one of the hardest things. I mean, in terms of the overall U.S. economy, I mean, farming is like one of the hardest things that anyone could ever do. Almost nobody can do it. I mean, it's and I'm telling you, like me, like when I take a look at it for what it is, me having started a business, a successful business, and my successful business having been that I became a cattle farmer, puts me in like the top 0.00001 percentile of the entire U.S. economy. Like it's almost unheard of. Like I can almost guarantee not a single person will ever, like if you happen to see me, and if you happen to come across my YouTube channel, you will probably never see it again. Your entire life. Nobody's going to be like, I started a cattle farm on 10.5 acres and made so much money that I could do whatever I want. I'm the only one that managed to do it. And when I take a look at the numbers for what they are, and I'm in the top 0.00001 percentile of the entire U.S. economy, there's only 10,000 to 20,000 people in the entire country out of 333.4 million people. There's only about 10 to 20,000 people in the entire country that managed to even make as much money as me over the last 365 days. And I managed to do it by running cattle on a 10.5 acre field in my backyard. And, chances are this is the one time you will ever get to see it. I mean, I don't know anybody that can even do 10%. And so, but this is how I do it, right? I'm giving all of the information away for free. Where do I find my information? Google Scholar, right? How do I diagnose my field, right? This is how I do it, right? Everything. What do I fertilize my field with? Why am I fertilizing my field with it, etc.? Everything. I give all of the information away for free. Right, I gave away everything for free. I don't need your money. I'm not asking you to buy anything from me. I already have as much money as I could ever use. As long as I farm and I don't do drugs and I don't do alcohol, I don't drink a bunch of alcohol, et cetera, et cetera. As long as I don't have problems, I essentially have more money than I could ever use my entire life. Right, I mean, I can make as much money as I want. Even right now on a 10.5 acre field, I'm almost averaging $15,000 a month. And I'm on a 10.5 acre field. And so, as long as I continue to run cattle, I essentially have so much money that I can do whatever I want. And so, I don't want your money. I don't need your money. Trust me. I can make as much money as I ever need. So, I mean, I'm giving all the information away for free. And that's it for me today, YouTube. Y'all have a good one.